It is my pleasure to welcome you today. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. On behalf of the Alliance for Financial Inclusion and the Inclusive Green Finance Working Group, I'm delighted to welcome you to the first webinar on green finance taxonomies. Today's session focuses on the foundation and design of green finance taxonomy, an essential step in aligning our financial systems with national stability priorities and global climate goals. As many of you know, taxonomies provide us with a shared language to identify and classify economic activities that are truly green and sustainable. They help guide financial flows, improve transparency, and reduce the risk of greenwashing. For emerging markets and developing economies, these tools are particularly vital. They not only enhance market integrity, but also ensure that climate finance reaches the sectors, SMEs, and communities most in need of resilience. This webinar brings together leading experts and regulators who have been at the forefront of developing national taxonomies. We will hear about experiences and perspectives on how to design taxonomies that balance international alignment with local realities, and how to embed principles of inclusivity, proportionality, and practicality, and reflect on how to design taxonomies, integrate both mitigation and adaptation, and promote financial inclusion. And with that, I would like to introduce our splendid moderator. She is Nashwa Mouhaoui. She is the head of the Green Finance Unit at the Bank Al Maghrib. And Nashwa has over 5 years experience in banking supervision and prior experience as a financial analyst in France. She leads the implementation of Morocco's Sustainable Finance Roadmap, oversees climate-related risk supervision, and contributes to regional and international green finance initiatives. With this, I would like to thank Nashwa, and I hand over to you for having this splendid conversation. Thank you, Nashwa. Over to you.
Thank you, Laura. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry in advance if you hear any background noise. I'm still on my summer break and summer leave, so I'm sorry if you hear any background noise. Normally, I'm in a quiet place. So, hello, everyone. It is my absolute pleasure to be introducing, moderating this first of a series of webinars on green finance taxonomies. In today's webinar, we'll be addressing the topic of the foundation and design of green finance taxonomies. And we'll be hearing, as it was already mentioned and said by Laura, from some of the very inspiring fast movers, but also practical experiences and journeys when it comes to implementation processes and development of green taxonomies from Sri Lanka, Zambia, but also from Nepal. We'll have also the privilege to hear as a first step from Faisal from the State Bank of Pakistan, who will set the stage and set the scene of this webinar on the relevance and importance of green finance taxonomies in the broader context of sustainable development. This will be done with the aim of building capacities of AFI members, of the Inclusive Green Finance Working Group members, on some of the development implementation processes. We'll have the opportunity through peer insights, to have also an overview and a clear idea understanding of the successful government structures and arrangements, but also point at some of the key challenges and possible solutions to make sure that while implementing, designing these green finance taxonomies, we're also aligning with our climate objectives and priorities. And as it was also perfectly said by Laura, green finance taxonomy is a necessary precondition to channel the necessary investment to climate action, more importantly in the emerging markets and developing economies context, to make sure that there is a market integrity, transparency, and the high quality of data. This will help financial institutions better originate, but also more easily and consistently both green finance and inclusive green finance instrument. It would serve as a basis and foundation for policy, regulatory development, but also for implementing targeted and differentiated measures that would support specific sectors and underserved populations in line with the climate action. With that, I think that we will, before handing over to Faisal from the State Bank of Pakistan, will have also a nice breaking activities through a Mentimeter questions to also break the ice, know from where you are joining us today, at what stage you are in when it comes to developing the taxonomies, what approaches you are considering, and what areas of focus you are already considering when it comes to either considering the implementation or if you are already in the process of implementation or development of green finance taxonomy. With that, hand over to you, Laura. We'll project the answers to have also the broad overview, and I'll have the opportunity to reflect this state of play green finance taxonomies within all the participants present today.
Thank you, Najwa. I will open the link. So please, here are the instructions. I think I stop sharing. Give me 1 second. Hold on, give me 1 second. I'm opening the Mentimeter and right. Okay. So please go to your Mentimeter. You can use the code or you can go directly to menti.com and please introduce this code. I'm seeing people joining, so I only have 6 in the room. And with this, yeah, Najwa, are you ready? I think we have 6 in Mentimeter. I think that others are joining.
But I can't see the answers.
You don't see them?
No.
Sorry, Laura, could you reshare the codes and the email address? Thanks. For the website.
Oh, sure. Now. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see the code. Yeah.
Perfect. So this is the instructions. So you can go to Mentimeter. And this is the code. You can find it also in the chat. Okay.
Can someone admit me into the Mentimeter, please?
Okay, hold on.
I'm also getting the message that it's waiting for presenter.
Here. Hold on. Okay. Present. Okay, now you see my screen, right?
Yes.
The big with instructions. Let me see if it's the right one. I think that okay. Let's start with the first one. Yeah, would you like to hand over these ones?
Yeah, sure. So I assume the answers are still loading because so I think that both answers are melted, but we can see some first ideas on what comes to our minds when we think about green taxonomy. I see transparency, climate change, a list, more financing, structure, greenwashing for sure that provide a common baseline that would prevent having greenwashing. Dictionary, organization, for sure, sustainability, because and we'll see it afterward with the keynote presentation on the relevance in the sustainable and development goals perspective. Yeah, it would help to identify climate opportunities. It will be clearly identifiable to investors and market participants through these eligibility criteria and listing green assets and activities. Common base, definitely. Finance, reporting, tagging, yeah, because we could also have through this eligible criteria some green labels to comply with, classification system, green investment, disclosures for sure, and reporting to improve transparency. They are closely interlinked. Climate risk, yeah, for sure. Indirectly, that would help to, while identifying green activities, to also clearly identify those assets and activities that are not having any environmental benefits and that would be harmful to the natural ecosystem, environmental safeguard. Yes, I think I covered them all. Okay, areas of focus and priorities when it comes to developing a national green finance taxonomy. And with no surprise, climate change mitigation is at the first place. Then adaptation, biodiversity, and nature-based solutions, more importantly, in the context of our economies highly dependent on nature. Then, yeah, financial inclusion for sure, and SME finance. So mitigation is still at the first place. I was expecting climate adaptation at the first step, but yeah. The answers are still loading. Okay. So I think this is the last question on what frameworks are you considering and approaches when it comes to implementing the taxonomies. So I think that the majority is going from a mandatory hybrid phased approach, gradual approach. Yes, I think this is the best option is to have this hybrid or phased approach where we have a flexible taxonomy framework that could accommodate any additional requirements as our expertise is developing, but also our understanding of environmental and sustainability issues at the national level, but also take account of any international policy development. And I think in terms for mandatory versus voluntary, I think the vast majority is opting for a mandatory approach. So when it comes to the state of play and development, I'll wait for the answers to be loaded. So I think that the big majority here is in the development processes, which is good because the series of webinars would help build the capacities and maybe steer the efforts in the development processes, what lessons we can learn from our peers, but also what are the mistakes that we should be avoiding, some of the key challenges that we could be facing, and possible solutions. So I think that the majority is in the development process stage. So this provides a clear idea to our panelists and speakers on the things that we should also focus on, maybe to seize the opportunity of this webinar to help all the participants advance on their green finance taxonomy journey development. Perfect. I think, Laura, that we are done with the ice-breaking session and that we can now hand over to the keynote speaker, Mr. Faisal Shafar from the State Bank of Pakistan. It's my honor to introduce you for providing the stage and setting the scene for this webinar. So Faisal Shafar is the additional director at the State Bank of Pakistan and has a proven 23 years experience within the central banking. He oversees the sustainable and housing finance policies, leads the development of Pakistan's national green taxonomy, and promotes green mortgages. He holds a master's degree in economics. And with that, I welcome you, Faisal, to provide your keynote presentation.
Thank you, Najwa. And good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and greetings from Pakistan. And first of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the organizers of this very important on this very important topic, that is the green finance taxonomies. So we will start with the literal definition of the word taxonomy. What actually taxonomy is called for. Taxonomy basically originates from the Greek word, the taxes and the nomia. By taxes, we mean basically the arrangement or order of something. And by nomia, we mean that a method or a law. So literally, a taxonomy can be defined as a system or method of classifying things into ordered manner, ordered categories based on the shared characteristics or based on the common traits and dispositions. And this concept is most commonly known for biology, like classifying different species such as kingdom, phylums, class and order, and etc. So how this word is used in green taxonomy. So I would like to share with you what actually a green taxonomy is and what it is not. So when we talk about what a green taxonomy is, basically it's a tool to identify the green and sustainable assets and projects. It's a tool to identify or to classify the economic activities into green activities. So it is also a tool, basically, which assists in decision-making on sustainable financing. It's a tool to establish a common definition of green and sustainable activities for users of the financial system. Similarly, it is also a very important tool to avoid greenwashing and market fragmentation with regard to the sustainability conditions. And what actually it is not. So it is also very important to define that what a green taxonomy is not. It is not a tool for classifying into a good or a bad economic activities. It is not a mandatory list of investments for private or public sector. It is not a tool to assess the financial performance of an asset or an activity. Similarly, it is not a tool to assess environmental and social risks, and not a tool for identifying the financing instruments. So basically, when we talk about taxonomy, that what actually a taxonomy is basically, it's a classification system, it is a dictionary, it is a lens through which you see economic activities, that which economic activities can be called as a green activity and which cannot be called as a green activity, green economic activity. Can we go to the next slide now? Laura? Yes. So now we will briefly describe that who are the users of the taxonomy. Basically, if you talk about the governments and policymakers are the main users of the taxonomy. And what they do, basically, they identify the areas of underinvestment and in order to minimize the funding gaps. It also facilitates the development or identifying the pipeline of projects that can be financed to facilitate green financing activities, or to facilitate green budget tagging as well. So for the governments, these are the few uses of the taxonomy. When we talk about the businesses basically would like to develop products and projects that can be labeled as green, and they also taxonomy also helps the businesses to make sustainable, environmentally sustainable choices. Similarly, when we, in case of investors and asset managers, basically it helps the investors and the asset managers to identify the investment opportunities. It supports the green investment decisions. It meets the regulatory reporting and disclosure requirements. It helps to understand the exposure to the green investments as well. For banks and financial institutions, basically taxonomy facilitates to identify the projects to which the green financing can be provided to. It helps to make a very informed investment decisions to promote green financing. Similarly, it also supports the sustainable funding operations. Another very important aspect is it helps to meet the regulatory disclosure requirements as well. For financial regulators, basically, it supports the regulatory interventions to scale up the green financing, to scale up the green investments. It also facilitate to report and to make the disclosures in line with the international standards. Similarly, it also supports to track green financial flows and identify areas of underinvestment. So another use of the taxonomy is to attract the international capital towards the vulnerable areas, to the vulnerable economic sectors, in order to minimize the climate risk by investing into mitigation and adaptation activities. And it also helps the thematic bond issuers. Basically, how it helps is basically identify the eligible green investments. Can we go to the next slide now? So in this slide, we will see that in the whole ecosystem of the high-level sustainability goals, where we can place the taxonomy. So I have adopted this diagram from the Bank for International Settlement. And basically, it initially describes the starting point for every country could be the national environmental agenda and the policy goals. So basically, the high-level policy goal is basically ratified ratified by the internationally accepted sustainability goals such as Paris agreements, SDGs, then you can see that in the diagram that high level policy options. What are the high level policy options? These are the legal restrictions on damaging activities. You can impose taxes. You can make pricing, for example, the carbon pricing. Similarly, you can offer or you can promote public investment or provide subsidies to the activities that have the positive impact on the environment, on the climate. And you can channel private financial flows to the investments with sustainability benefits, such as to support the climate mitigation, which is the Paris Agreement third main goal. And then the primary purpose. What is the primary purpose? Basically, it enables the investors to identify the assets with sustainability benefits, basically. And why, and what is the primary purpose? And there is another very important purpose, is to improve the assessment and the market price of the sustainability risk. So then you can see in the diagram that the policy instruments in the policy instrument taxonomy has a very important place. It helps to basically enable investors. It enables investors to identify the assets with particular sustainability goals. It also helps to improve the sustainability disclosures and accounting standards. Similarly, the financial sector regulation can be made more transparent with the help of the taxonomy. It improves the risk management processes and the processes and the risk management requirements. So here you can see that that in the whole ecosystem, or in the whole high-level sustainability goals, taxonomy is only one policy instrument. Can we go to the next slide now? So as per now, around 50 green taxonomies have been developed globally, and 14 countries have developed green taxonomies in Asia. So that is the landscape of the taxonomy world. So number of countries basically are in the process of developing the green taxonomies, and now there are also a number of countries who are in the process of the implementation of the green taxonomy. Next, please. So what are the key components of a green finance taxonomy? Basically, it covers the environmental objectives. And what are the environmental objectives? If you talk about the environmental objective, that is the climate mitigation, the adaptation, basically the sustainable use of water, and the protection of the marine resources. Another very important objective is the transition to the circular economy, pollution prevention, and restoration of the biodiversity and ecosystem. These are the major environmental objectives which a green finance taxonomy usually address. So how you identify the eligible activities and sectors? What can be the eligible activities and the sector? So there are different methods that can be adopted. One of those methods is basically you take 2 or 3 variables, for example, the sectoral contribution to the GDP and the greenhouse gas emission of that particular sector, and based Based on these contributions or based on these measurements, you identify the eligible activities and the sectors. And then the technical screening criteria is basically developed. And what is the technical screening criteria? And these are basically the measurable thresholds or benchmarks that have been that are basically developed and defined for particular economic activities, that if a certain activities has X amount of say carbon dioxide emission, then it will be considered as a green activity. And if an economic activities surpasses or crosses that particular threshold, that cannot be considered as a green activity. It might be classified as an amber activity, which can be which is basically a which is basically a classification where an activity can be classified in the transition phase. That cannot be classified as a green activity, but you can classify that particular activity in the transitional phase. And then there are certain activities which are not either classified as green activity or amber activity. Such activities are classified as red activities, classified under the red category. So the financing to the activities which are classified under red category cannot be called as the green activity. So while defining these eligible activities and sectors and the technical screening criteria, there are two basically main principles there, which are basically adopted or applied to the across the sectors. And one of those principles is the do no significant harm, which means that that particular activity which is classified as a green or an amber activity should not provide harm, should not create environmental harm. Similarly, the minimum social standards has to be complied for, has to be taken care of, such as the minimum wages or the gender bias. These has to be taken care of while providing while providing green financing or while classifying the green economic activity. So, please, next slide. So these are the few implementation challenges with regard to the taxonomy. The top one is basically the institutional capacity and the governance, because these are the implementation as well as the challenges in the development of the taxonomy, because the development of the taxonomy is a very resource intensive activity. It requires a lot of coordination, a lot of collaboration among different functionaries of the government, of the central bank, of the Ministry of Finance, of the Ministry of Climate Change, of different regulatory bodies, such as the regulatory bodies relating to the energy, regulatory bodies relating to the climate. So, and it also requires a cross-ministerial coordination. Expert input is also very important, and the regulatory coherence is another thing which needs to be taken care of. And similarly, the data availability and the quality is the another area which needs to be very closely looked into. So because taxonomy demands a lot of data, such as on energy use or emissions, or the what construction materials can be used. Similarly, the life cycle assessments are also very necessary for a particular economic activity, that at how much time one economic activity can be transitioned into a green economic activity. So for this, you need the data availability, and the quality of data is very important. Another very important challenge and issue is basically the alignment of the international standards with the local laws and regulations, because taxonomies should be interoperable. The definition of an economic activity in one country in one country should be comparable the definition of the similar economic activity in another country. For example, countries with large informal housing sector must ensure taxonomy reflect local housing realities and construction practices. Next slide, please. So another important thing is basically the financial sector readiness. The banks, housing finance companies, and microfinance banks and institutions, they need basically, they need and they require technical and operational capacity to align lending with the taxonomy criteria. They need to develop green financing products in line with the definitions given in the taxonomy, in the green taxonomy. And for this, they require a lot of training, a lot of tools. Without having these trainings and tools, it would be very difficult for the financial sector to implement the taxonomies. Another important thing is basically the political and economic uncertainty. As you know, particularly in developing countries, there is a lot of change in the administration. There are fiscal pressures. There's a very little fiscal space available to provide incentives to promote the green economic activities, as there are the competing priorities. So it can dilute the implementation of the taxonomy momentum. So it is very important to ensure the policy continuity, um, uh, to ensure its credibility. Yes, next slide, please. So that is a potential way for the central banks with regard to the implementation of the taxonomy. As I already discussed, the capacity building and awareness is very important on the green taxonomy. Similar is the alignment of the green initiatives with the green taxonomy. Those initiatives should be aligned with the green taxonomy. Again, the role of the commercial bank, the role of the financial sector is very important. So their policies should be aligned with the national green taxonomies. And at the last, but not the least, that is the disclosure and the reporting requirements for regulatory entities on climate risk. That is also very important because it will minimize the greenwashing risk. So that's it. That's it. Thank you very much from my side.
You, Faisal, it was very insightful. With that, I hand over to Guru from Nepal Rostro Bank to share the journey of the Nepal Rostro Bank in the implementation and design of green finance taxonomy. So Guru has 2 decades of service at the Nepal Rostro Bank, and he's currently serving as an executive director at the Bank and Financial Institutions Regulation Department. He has extensive cross-functional experience contributing to both the strategic and administrative objectives of the institutions, and he played a key role in the design of Nepal's green finance taxonomy. So Mr. Podel holds the Master of Philosophy and the Master of Business Administration from Tribhuvan University. With that, it's my honor to hand over to you to share the journey of the Nepal Rostro Bank. Thank you.
Thank you, Nazwa. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Perfect. Yeah, perfectly from my
Yes,
side.
thank you. Thank you, Nazwa. Thank you, Faisal, for your detailed and insightful presentation. Yes, of course, it will be very easy for me because you have detailed discussion about the taxonomy, formulation, implementation, and some sort of challenges also. Thanks again, Faisal. Yes, across the globe, green finance, sustainable finance has become more than buzzword. It is now a necessity. It's not a buzzword now, right now. But one fundamental challenge still remains. That is, what exactly do we mean by green? Without clarity, investment risks becoming the scatter or even misused. That's why everyone country should have taxonomy. Because as Faisal said, taxonomy provide the clear definition, scientific definition of the green and non-green investment and economic activities. So in this regard, we also have developed our taxonomy, Nepal Green Finance Taxonomy. Because why we developed this is the background information I have put it in my first slides, that Nepal requires substantial financial resources to meet these climate and environment ambitions. Estimated that Nepal needs around 36 billion USD for nationally determined contribution implementation, and as well as 46 billion USD for the long-term strategy for net zero emissions implementation. Since Nepal government has set the target in 2045 net zero emission. Okay, then we need around 2 billion USD annually for the national adaptation plan by 2030. That's why it is very big challenge for us to domestically mobilize this money, this amount, huge amount. So we have to invite, we have to attract more financial resources from the cross border. That's why we developed the taxonomy. Please, next slide, please. Yes, I would like to mention here some climate change and an impact in Nepal. Yes, of course, you can see, although Nepal's contribution to the global carbon emission is minimal, but though we are facing so many troubles and so many problems we are happening due to the climate changes. One data we can see that between 2012 to 2024, Nepal experienced over the 44,000 disasters, and such events are projected to become more than frequent and more intense. One of them last year, just 1% of GDP in Nepal in a single flood event was happened. And this time also, this year also, flood in Rasua, which is the neighboring border of the China. Nepal is linked to the climate change and glacial lake outburst of flood. And as you know that Nepal has so many mountains, high Himalayas, and melting the glacier is the one of the major problems due to the climate change. And Nepal's climate vulnerability and strong reliance on climate sensitive sector also over there, because we have agricultural sector and hydropower sector, and our agricultural sector contribution to GDP is around 25%. We have the hydropower sector also. These sectors are a climate sensitive sector also. So that's why we are very much affected by the climate change. Next, please. And in one side, and another side that is very different is there. Long drought in Madhya province with the late rains, no irrigation, irrigation has left large farmlands in the barren and created the growing risks to the food crisis. Madhya, one of the province of Nepal, has been officially declared a drought affected area, a harsh reality felt by the every farmer. Means just I want to explain about one side we are facing the some sort of the flood and landslide, and another side we are facing some sort of drought. That's we are happening and facing. Yes. Next, please. So importance of the green finance taxonomy in our case to rapid growth climate vulnerability to cope, is actually we need to attract the green capital, more capital. As I mentioned, the huge capital needed, and the most important thing is we need green finance taxonomy to avoid the greenwashing. This is the major thing, I think. The next one, please. Yes. While doing
Le
the development,
processus de développement.
hello. Any
Sorry
is there,
for this interruption. I think that
is
we
there
have issues with the interpreters. Please go ahead. Guru, we cannot see you. If it's possible, could you please switch on your camera?
yes, I have already opened, but my some technical problems here. Is there?
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Please
Do
go
you
ahead.
idea? Do you have any idea? Yeah. Already open. It is already open. Sorry. Yes, it's okay. Yeah. It's now working. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, this is the development process. Yes. In the development process side, is already Nepal government has some sort of the key policies, background policies are there. The government of Nepal has developed the legal and institutional mechanism to implement the long-term goals as they agreed in the Paris Agreement. We have the Environment Protection Act 2019, National Climate Change Policy 2019, and climate resilience planning and budgeting guidelines, and many others, some sort of like policies and act government has built. In this background, we reviewed a lot of international green finance taxonomy also. Nepal taxonomy is country specific, but we broadly aligned with the major global standards like European Union taxonomy and ASEAN taxonomies to balance internationally consistency with the local priorities. It is we have reviewed a lot of international taxonomy also, and Nepal Green Fund taxonomy follows the principle based. We have followed the principle based and the whitelist based approach to classify the relevant economic activities to identify the specific green investment. This is our developmental process. Next, please. And in the governance mechanism, we have built one steering committee led by the Deputy Governor of Nepal Rashtra Bank and different department of Nepal Rashtra Bank. And it was an interagency committee and some representation, high-level representation from the Security Board of Nepal, Nepal Insurance Authority, and key officials from the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Forest and Environment. And steering committee was a high-level committee, and we had formed working level committee also, which was led by the director of the Nepal Rashtra Bank, and all participants from the government of Nepal, Security Board of Nepal, Nepal Insurance Authority, and other government ministries also. And right now, when we issued the Green Finance Taxonomy, currently it is overseen by the Nepal Rashtra Bank, my department, Bank and Financial Institution Regulation Department, while while drafting phase, we have conducted a lot of stakeholder consultations and feedback to collect and validate the information. We have put our draft report in our website also, and we get a lot of feedbacks to finalize this green finance taxonomy. Next, please. Yes, our intended taxonomy users are all commercial banks and financial institutions which are licensed by Nepal Rashtra Bank, one key stakeholders of Nepal. Similarly, merchant banks and private equity, venture capital, licensed by Security Board of Nepal. And one of the major users are insurance authorities, licensed institutions like life insurance, non-life insurance, reinsurance, and micro insurance institutions. And other entities are private sector, including MSMEs, pension or trust fund, employee provident fund, citizen investment trust, These are the key stakeholders. These are the key intended taxonomy users over there. And next, please. And regarding the principal classification methodology in the Nepal Green Finance taxonomy, we have aligned with the environmental objectives to ensure the activities contribute significantly to climate mitigation, adaptation, pollution control, and resource conservation. To classify the economic activities, we have not referenced industrial classification code while classifying economic activities, but the sectors and categories of the investment are based on the following aspects. Like to the lending areas, the bank and financial institutions, it is categorized by the approved by the Nepal Rashtra Bank as guided by unified directives and monetary policy. Similarly, some sort of capital market areas as categorized by the SEBON as guided by the Securities Act, and non-life insurance categories as directed by the Nepal Insurance Authority, guided by the Insurance Act. And we have international green finance examples. We have adopted some examples of the international green finance taxonomies also, and we have adopted the four principle: climate change adaptation, climate change mitigation, natural resource management and the conservation, and the principle number 4 was is pollution control and prevention. And we have followed the, as I mentioned, the principal and whitelist-based approach. The classification, our taxonomy classification under the economic activities is categorized based on the principal and whitelist-based. And the principle-based approach focus on the defining a set of core guiding principle to access the economic activities. And the white list-based approach focus on the identifying list of the eligible projects and the activities. And do no significant harm remains the central part of the our guiding core principle. It means activities must not cause the substantial harm to other environmental or social goals. And in our taxonomy, it has highlighted the traffic light approach. Traffic light approach, the all economic activities should categorize into three parts, that is green, amber, and red. As Faisal mentioned, for each category, a list of the green or transformative, amber and transitional, and red or non-compliant. A list of the activities are classified using the traffic light system, and this is our taxonomy's segregation. So all economic activities should be categorized into three parts. Next one, please. And while whitelist-based approach, why we choose the whitelist-based approach? Because our Nepal Green Fund taxonomy defines pre-approved list of the sectors and activities classified as the green. We have included in our taxonomy, and it offers the clear and detailed eligibility criteria also to be categorized as the green, to be categorized as the amber, and to be categorized as the red. But we have not stopped the amber and the red activities all side by side. And next one, please. Yes. One thing I would like to suggest to those who are going to implement, develop the taxonomy, we have not still these types of sort of committees while we hide in formulation part, but it is needed to implement in part also. We need steering committee, technical committee, and some as the same process while we drafting phase. So I think we need better to have steering committee to implement in the high level committee, as well as some sort of the technical committee to take feedback different from the stakeholders. And any secretariat department should be assigned to implement properly. Yes, thank you. Yes, next, please. And we have chosen voluntary right now. Yes, why we choose voluntary? Because given the current market maturity and technical capacity and the data limitation, Nepal Rashtra Bank has implemented a voluntary approach to foster broad stakeholder engagement and encourage progressive adaptation. With improvements in the data quality and technical capacity, Nepal Rashtra Bank is committed to advancing towards a mandatory framework to strengthen the market integrity and drive sustainable finance growth in near future. So right now we are our taxonomy is the reference document to the bank and financial only, and we have requested the government of Nepal to make it the national document. After getting the approval from the national document, hello, how many sectors? That's good. How many sectors does Nepal Green Fund Taxonomy focus on? Thank you. Yes. Yes, I will explain it later. Yes. Next, please. And this is the way forward taxonomies and strengthen capacity building for the effective taxonomy implementation and the monitoring. We need some sort of the capacity building, turning to the regulators and bank and financial institution people also. Because we have around 7,000 bank and financial institution branches. If we mandate the all bank and financial institution to mandate taxonomy and to classify economic activities, their lending behavior, their lending activities, we need at least a lot of people, trained people to adopt taxonomy. So capacity building is the major thing. While we have to adopt, we have to think and implement the Nepal Green Fund taxonomy across the financial institution. And we are waiting national recognition. I shall officially adopt the taxonomy as a national framework. After getting the approval from the government of Nepal, then we'll apply it all over the all economic activities. And to determine the share of the total exposure, we have to track and report the share of the total financing classified as the green. We need some sort of to develop the incentive policies to encourage the green investment, to increase the green exposure. This is the part. So we have to do a lot of things to implement as a mandatory. Right now we are to build in the roadmap how to develop, like including all those things, capacity building, and to get national recognition and some sort of like incentives also we are seeking. Okay. Next one. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Guru, for the very detailed, quite insightful presentation. I saw that we are already having some few questions on both presentation. We suggest having all the speakers answering these questions by the end of the webinar. We'll have enough space for a questions and answers session. So please do not hesitate to drop any questions that you may have in the chat box. We'll have also the opportunity to raise your hands and raise any questions that you may have. With that, we are moving to the next presentation on the Sri Lanka's experience. So we are delighted to have Dushan Rana Singh, who is Senior Assistant Director at the Sustainable Finance Division of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. He heads the Sustainable Finance Division and acts as a secretariat for the Sustainable Finance Roadmap and is serving its technical committee. He has contributed over the past to policy frameworks for sustainable development. His previous roles include positions in the statistics and regional development departments and have over 5 years as an examiner of non-bank financial institutions. He holds a master's degree in economics from the University of Sydney, as well as a bachelor in finance from the University of Surrey, and is also an associate member of CIMA from the United Kingdom. With that, I hand over to you, Dushan, to share your journey of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you, Najwa. I hope I'm adequately audible to everyone. And thanks for this opportunity, Hafi and IGF Working Group for having Sri Lankan experience showcase at this forum. So before moving on to the wide presentation, this is for everyone's an overview of the Sri Lankan financial sector before understanding the importance of coming up with the taxonomy and the sustainable finance drive at the central bank. So we have at present 30 banks out of the 24 are commercial, and then we have 6 specialized banks. And also we have 33 finance companies regulated by the central bank. So the banking sector contributes to 62% of the financial system, where the 33 finance companies only adds up to 5.4% of the whole financial system. But the interesting figure is that so far, after about 5 years of sustainable financing efforts, we have grown the sustainable lending portfolios just above 1% of the total lending portfolios of the banking sector. So the banking sector in total has an asset base of US dollars 73 billion. Next slide, please. So the central bank, I saw in the chat also there was a question who's leading this whole sustainable finance drive in Pakistan. Central bank in Sri Lanka. So why we initiated the sustainable finance activities is because mainly we have our 2 overarching objectives at the central bank. One is to maintain economic and price stability, and the other one is financial system stability. So both of these objectives are impacted by the climate events, and we used to be among the top 10 hotspots when it's come to climate vulnerabilities. And because of that, it became a concern for the financial sector as a whole. So with that understanding in 2016 is where we actually initiated our first steps towards making the financial sector more greener by joining the Sustainable Banking and Finance Network, which at that time accounted for about 86% of the total banking assets in the emerging markets. So we joined the SBFN, which was backed by IFC, and they supported us in coming up with our first roadmap, sustainable finance roadmap. Next slide, please. So which we started in 2016, and we launched the roadmap in 2019 with 6 focus areas. So we had our country's financing vision for 2030, and then the other priorities were ESG integration into the financial market, and also we had a drive for financial inclusion, and capacity building requirement was so much that we wanted to address it both at the regulators side and also financial sector participants, and also to interact with the international best practices and bring in knowledge from the outside world in developing these policies. And most importantly, we wanted to match our reporting and measurement practices on par with the region and the wider the world practices. So so we came up with the roadmap 5 years ago, and now we have actually launched our second roadmap for the next 5 years. And as part of the roadmap, the first roadmap in 2022 only, we came up with the green finance taxonomy, that again with the financial and technical assistance of IFC. Let's move to the next slide, please. So in this roadmap, we had a structure that involved both internal and external stakeholders. So we had 3 committees that were formed in 2019 for the implementation of the roadmap. So the we had a steering committee, which was an all internal committee at the central bank, represented different departments, including the regulatory departments, bank supervision, this finance company supervision, and regional development. And then we had a stakeholder committee, which was an interregulatory committee, because the taxonomy or the roadmap did not only serve for the regulated entities of the central bank, but we had partnered with the capital markets regulator, and also the insurance sector was covered. And also there was an extension to the microfinance practitioners. So all of those regulatory entities were part of this stakeholder committee that we formed. And thirdly, we had a technical committee, which is again all internal committee at the central bank, where the technical staff was involved in feeding into the decisions that were made at the steering committee and the stakeholder committee. The next slide, please. Yeah, so in terms of the banking sector, because the banking sector, as I elaborated earlier, it was the core stakeholder of implementing the roadmap in Sri Lanka. So they were given, they had a series of actions under the Sustainable Finance Roadmap focused at coming up with mostly the innovative sustainable loan products, deposit products. To come up with innovative products, basically, and to establish ESG risk management strategies and frameworks within their respective banks, and also to lift up their capacities in terms of sustainable lending or new products or the taxonomy technical areas. So that was expected of the banking sector employees. And also not just to attract funding from the local sources, but also to go cross-border and attract international resources, maybe as investments or any funding lines dedicated for sustainable financing. And also we wanted banks to be on par with their reporting and disclosures, especially with the introduction of IFRS S1 and S2. So those were the expectations of the banking sector. Next slide, please. So this, I think, was very clearly explained by Faisal in the first presentation, so I need not touch upon the definitions. So I'm hopping on to the taxonomy, moving away from roadmap, and we can move to the next slide. So right now, as Dr. Marjun Guru in Sustainable Finance once said, right now what's happening around the world is a taxonomy war. As Faisal also mentioned, over 50 taxonomies are being developed, and some are in developing stage, as the Menti question gave a good overview of the participation today. So many of you are from countries or jurisdictions where you're developing green finance taxonomies. So what we need right now, in my opinion, is a bit of harmonization. Otherwise, there will be too many taxonomies, and the funding, when it comes to funding, there will be so many restrictions, and it will be, so it's always better to coordinate and come up with a harmonized taxonomy that can be applied across board. Next slide, please. So interestingly, there are contrasting views over time, and this was one of the latest news that I came across in July, that Britain is planning to scrap their taxonomy plans, making a remark that it may not add on to their objectives of greening their systems. Rather, it will complicate this greening efforts further and will not provide any like progressive input to their efforts. So that's another side of the equation, where many of the countries are getting into taxonomies, including Australia and New Zealand. Britain is moving, seems like they're moving away from taxonomy universe. The next slide. So this question, I'm not going to give an answer at this point. So why do we need a taxonomy? Do we really need a taxonomy? If so, why? But with the next slides, in the case of Sri Lanka, you will have an understanding as to why we wanted a taxonomy. So that's my introduction to the Sri Lanka's green finance taxonomy. So as part of our original roadmap, we wanted to develop a taxonomy to guide the financial sector, mostly the banking sector, to have a uniform way of classifying what activities to be called green. So we in this process, which was started after 2019, so we collaborated with international and local experts in developing the green finance taxonomy, so which was focused into green activities, not only in mitigation but adaptation, since as an island country, adaptation was equally important for us, and also other green objectives of waste, maybe waste management, so on and so forth. So next slide, please. So what are the features of the Sri Lanka's green finance taxonomy? So it's covering 8 main areas, from agriculture, manufacturing, construction, tourism, transportation, electricity, gas supply, water supply, and waste management. And it is covering both adaptation and mitigation activities. So this is one of the key features of our taxonomy, is that it's a harmonized taxonomy between East and West, between European taxonomy and Chinese taxonomy. So we have followed IPSF, so International Platform for Sustainable Finances, Common Ground taxonomy. So it's an extension to the Common Ground taxonomy developed by IPSF. And in terms of the national context, it's in line with our industrial industrial classifications, which is again derived from the international standard industry classification. So we have not covered all the industrial areas in the ISIC, but limited industries where high prominence or high relevance is observed in terms of green activities. And this was developed throughout a period of 12 to 16 months with the involvement of the financial sector stakeholders, as well as industrial sectors, government, and other agencies who are involved in the sustainable financing activities. Next slide, please. So what were the objectives? So as with many of the taxonomies developed, so we had the environmental objectives of climate change mitigation, adaptation as the primary objectives, and also to have pollution prevention and control, and ecological conservation, because Sri Lanka is known to be one of the biodiversity hotspots in the region. So that was also addressed. And another key feature is that it's not just green taxonomy, but it covers the blue resources as well. And also a unique feature in our taxonomy is that it has classified some activities in the tourism sector as well. So the guiding principles, as was in the case of Nepal, it's to have do no significant harm principle, and also minimum safeguards. And this was a science-based screening. So we have activities with direct eligibility, and also there were matrices where a certain threshold was set based on scientific calculations. And it's on par with international standards, but also we have kept room for dynamic adjustment based on national interests. Next slide, please. And as an answer related to the question that I raised, why do we need a taxonomy? So this is the importance to the financial sector from the experience that we had in Sri Lanka. For the financial regulators, that was one policy or a document that classifies this is green and this is not. So it clearly demarcates the green activities, which acts as a preventive measure against greenwashing. So it provides a common basis across the financial sector, and it's any reporting done by the financial institutes are comparable. For the financial institutions, they are looking for funding, and following an accepted taxonomy that is in line with the international classifications is always a blessing for them when it comes to international funding or any other investors who are looking for sustainable initiatives or room for investments in the financial sector. And also it streamlines green loans and funding mechanisms. It's much easier, and someone is centrally having a classification through the regulator, so all they have to do is to follow that classification, so that becomes life becomes easier for the financiers as well. And for any other issuers of financial instruments, may it be corporate bonds or any other related green products. So we had them covered in our taxonomy. So they also sometimes, though not directly regulated by the central bank, there are other stakeholders who refer to the green finance taxonomy, because that is now accepted as the national document, even though it's not coming from the government. And when it comes to the answers to the question whether it's mandatory or voluntary, for the financial sector, the institutions regulated by the central bank, it is mandatory because we have issued directives and guidelines for the regulated financial institutions. But for the rest, especially in the case of capital markets, they have not made it mandatory, because some of the international investors, they prefer having international taxonomies or guidance over the national taxonomies. But they have kept it open for the investors or the issuing entities to choose. Next slide, please. So as I said, so we have issued guidance both to the banking sector and also to the finance companies through directions and guidelines on reporting sustainable finance activities on the basis of the taxonomy. And we realized that some of these financial institutions, the officers, particularly in their credit departments and some of the management personnel, they found it a bit complex to understand the taxonomy and the classifications. So we established an honorary panel of experts representing different areas covered in the taxonomy, who were involved in the process of developing the taxonomy, for any queries that are coming from the banks or the finance companies related to taxonomy. So it's currently available. So we have a dedicated email going on where they can post any issues when it comes to any proposals related to a funding. So they can always consult the panel of experts. Next slide, please. So what have we learned in this development phase of the green finance taxonomy. So the most important thing is that the central bank is not mandated for greening the economy, but we have a responsibility towards the financial sector. But it's equally important that we collaborate not just with the financial sector stakeholders, but across board. So we had Minister of Environment on board, and for the latest consultations, we have gone into government agencies representing the social aspect as well, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, likewise. And we have collaborated with the national policies and harmonized with the international developments as well. And in terms of the complexity of taxonomy, as I mentioned before, we came up with this panel of experts, and also operationalizing the taxonomy is still a challenge, because it was evident throughout the last few years that everyone is going for the low-hanging fruit, which is in our case the energy sector. So rooftop solar power projects, the domestic, the residential projects are the hot pick in most of the bank lending portfolios. But there's a full range of activities that we have classified, but they're not becoming popular among the demand side. So popularizing and operationalizing the taxonomy is a challenge, together with the development that comes in the next phase after you develop the taxonomy, to make it public and make it usable and have the outreach. And so always we need to prioritize certain activities, like even though it covers, the taxonomy covers so many activities, there has to be priority areas in alignment with the central bank objectives and also the national interest as well. So those were the lessons that we learned during the development. Next slide, please. And what is the present status and way forward in the Sri Lankan context? So as I said, so we came up with the first roadmap in 2019, and 5 years left, and now we came up with our second roadmap for the next 5 years. And part of that is to review the green finance taxonomy, because now we are addressing the social aspect of sustainability. So we want to cover the social activities also in the new taxonomy. And also we came up with a change to the structure of committees. Earlier, most, as I explained before, only the stakeholder committee had representation from other stakeholders outside the central bank. Now, in the new structure, we have welcomed representation for few working groups who are working in 3 thematic areas to develop new sustainable finance products: ESG, risk management, and also reporting and disclosure areas. And the green finance taxonomy operationalization project, we have planned to go for different stakeholder groups, targeting different stakeholder groups, and raise awareness and create capacity among the financiers, the SME sector, and also the regulators under this operationalization project. I think we will have questions towards the end, and for now, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dushan, for your quite detailed presentation on the Sri Lanka's experience in green finance taxonomy, some of the key lessons learned, but also the next way forward. With that, I hand over to Bank of Zambia, and we are delighted to have Dr. Oswald Mongol from the Bank of Zambia, who is a senior policy analyst at the Central Bank of Zambia and advanced green finance integration into regulation. He is co-leading Zambia's green finance mainstreaming working group, and he has a PhD in economics, also held, thanks to this PhD, he was able to hold academic advisory and consultancy roles with multiple international organizations. The floor is yours, Dr. Oswald, to provide your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Naja, for that introduction, and apologies if you can hear some background noise. I'm not in my office. I'm working somewhere within the Bank of Zambia. Yeah, so just bear with me if you can hear some background noise whilst I present. So we were told to do some presentation on the development of the Zambian taxonomy, and also focus on some of the challenges that we are facing in the development phase. In Zambia, we are yet to publish the taxonomy, but the process is in an advanced stage. So I'm going to give you some synopsis of what we've done and some of the intricacies in terms of how we plan to use the taxonomy in Zambia, and also some challenges that we faced in the development of the taxonomy, and then I'll conclude. Next. Yeah, so to start with, the Bank of Zambia has a green policy, which is also undergoing review. And this is within the Bank of Zambia's strategic plan for 2024 to 2027. And the bank has prioritized green finance as one of the priorities. And this is a pillar falling under financial stability. So the bank feels that there is a linkage between, for instance, climate change and financial sector stability, also price stability. So we are trying to integrate green into the traditional central banking mandate. So one of the instruments that we are working on together with our colleagues from other regulatory bodies is a green finance taxonomy, and we are calling it in Zambia as a Zambia Green Finance Taxonomy, ZGFT in short. So this green finance taxonomy is a classification system, and it allows the users to identify what is green and what is sustainable. It's meant to provide a variety of benefits to the users of the taxonomy, who include everyone in the economy will be a user of the taxonomy. But the focus for our green finance taxonomy is on the Zambian financial sector. So that's what we are focusing on for the time being. And the taxonomy will ensure that economic activities are assessed holistically in order to ensure that social and environmental risks and opportunities are considered. So we want to consider those types of risks as we utilize the Zambian taxonomy. The taxonomy will also allow us to, to have greater consistency and transparency in aligning green activities. That is very important for us to ensure that the market avoids greenwashing, and also to align ourselves with best international practices. Next. So what the use of the green taxonomy will do is to assist us in mainstreaming of the other green financial instruments, which we have currently. We have the green loans, we have the green bonds. We are yet to have the green insurance. Our colleagues are still working on the regulatory framework for that. So the green taxonomy will enable us to also integrate with other research institutions, such as universities, the private sector, innovators, and international institutions to advance green technologies and also build local capacity. So that's what we envisage from the utilization of the Zambia Green Taxonomy. For example, the green taxonomy or green finance taxonomy will assist issuers in understanding what economic activities would be considered. And I will briefly demonstrate how we are going to use the taxonomy to understand, or for someone to understand the economic activity that should be considered. Next. Okay, so in terms of the design of our taxonomy, we base the design on the South African, Kenyan, and the EU taxonomies. So the Zambian taxonomy, the way it has been designed, is that it's going to be interoperable with these jurisdictions that I've mentioned. In terms of the production of the taxonomy, we engaged consultants under the Green Finance Mainstreaming Working Group. And I'm going to talk about that later in terms of how we actually developed it and who were involved in the development of the taxonomy. So essentially, what we're saying is that because of this interoperability nature of our taxonomy, it is going to ensure that major trade partners are encouraged, and we are going to align our economic activities with these major countries that we are aligning our taxonomy, and it will also assist the regulators within the financial sector, who are the Bank of Zambia, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the PIA, with tracking and reporting requirements, which will be enhanced. Next. Okay, so in terms of, as I earlier on alluded to, the following are the institutions that constitute the Green Finance Mainstreaming Working Group. Now, in Zambia, we have 3 regulators for the financial sector. We have the Bank of Zambia for the money market. We have the pensions and insurance for the insurance sector, and then the Securities and Exchange Commission for the capital market. Now, for integrating green, these three institutions came together to sign an MOU so that we can find a common ground for integrating green finance into our operations. And that's how we have the Green Finance Mainstreaming Working Group, which is at the technical level. And then we also have another upper layer for decision making. So the Green Finance Mainstreaming Working Group reports into the main tripartite for decision making and to ensure good governance processes are followed. Then we also have the Ministry of Finance in the group. We have the ministry responsible for green economy and environment. We have the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, the Zambia Institute of Chartered Accountants, the United Nations Development Plan, BioFin, the WWF, Zambia, and Prospero Zambia. These institutions constitute the wider membership of the Green Finance Mainstreaming Working Group. Now, the Green Finance Mainstreaming Working Group is now going to, in terms of the governance for the Zambia Green Finance Taxonomy, it's going to be the main implementer or the institution that is going to implement the Green Finance Taxonomy in Zambia. Next. In terms of the sectors that we have for the Green Finance Taxonomy, we have 8 sectors. So that means that our Green Finance Taxonomy covers 8 sectors, namely the energy sector, the tourism sector, the waste management sector, transportation, mining, water, forestry, and sustainable agriculture. Now, these sectors, the advantage, we feel that we had an advantage when choosing these sectors because it was done at a time that Zambia had the worst drought situation in decades, which was 2024. That's when through a stakeholders workshop, we engaged the stakeholders and we agreed as a country that these are the sectors that were heavily impacted by the climate change. And therefore, we can begin with these sectors so that once we control or we manage climate change effects, then that then could translate into making our economy more resilient and also improving on our financial system stability and also price stability. So that's how the priority sectors were picked, and these priority sectors they are also aligned with the national environmental objectives as espoused in our national green finance plan, and also in our national green economy and carbon act that we have. So we have an act that also supports the green activities that we are implementing in the country. So the taxonomy serves as a guide for aligning investments with Zambia's sustainability goals while building investor confidence and enhancing the integrity of the green finance market. So that's very important for us, so that we can attract green funds into the economy. Because if the integrity of the market is not enhanced, then it's very difficult to attract capital and also to grow the market. So that's very important for us. Next. In terms of the documents that constitute the Zambia Green Finance Taxonomy, we have 5 documents. 4 are part of the Green Finance Taxonomy. Then the 5th one is an extension of the taxonomy, because we thought that we can't just develop the taxonomy, but also we need to develop a way of tagging and reporting. So we have also developed a tagging and reporting framework that will accompany the Zambia Green Finance Taxonomy. So it will come into those documents that are on the screen. The first document will be on the preliminaries and sources. And then we have the second document, which is on the Zambian green finance landscape. So we do the landscape, like a situation analysis, so what is happening in the country. We do a complete analysis of that. On the basis of that, then we develop the green finance taxonomy. So we have the third document that now develops the taxonomy. And then the 4th document is basically the sectoral technical screening criteria. So it's presented in terms of annexes to the green finance taxonomy. And then we have after that, then we have the tagging and reporting framework. So that's how we have aligned our green finance taxonomy in terms of the key documents that we are going to publish very soon. So the publication is scheduled probably by October. We should be able to publish the green taxonomy for Zambia. We've also shared for peer review. We want to receive some comments from peers who have implemented the green taxonomy, and we have started receiving some comments as we finalize for publication. Next. Okay, so I think I've already talked about this. Next. Next. I think the slides will be available next for you to use. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is the alignment steps. Now, this gives us the green finance taxonomy architecture in terms of how the users of the green taxonomy are going to apply. Section 4 of the Zambia Green Finance Taxonomy provides a stepwise framework for determining taxonomy alignment. So now we are getting into, just to show you the way the taxonomy operates in Zambia. Now, the stepwise framework must be used in conjunction with the the sector technical screening criteria, which is in the annex, to determine whether an economic activity meets the criteria for taxonomy alignment. This is intended to avoid the greenwashing, to make sure that whatever activity or project that you want to undertake is aligned to the taxonomy, and it's a green project. So if the economic activity is taxonomy aligned, then the tagging and reporting framework is used. And it can be used to calculate a specific financial metric that is required by the supervisor. So then the supervisor will compute that. But then it will be captured under tagging and reporting. Next. So these are the steps that we need to follow as presented in our taxonomy. So the first step is familiarization with the principles. So the user needs to do that. And the starting point is to look at, to understand whether you're going to use the mandatory principles or the voluntary principles. There are 3 points under the mandatory principle. You have to look at whether the project or the activity makes significant contributions to at least one environmental objective. Secondly, you need to do no significant harm. Thirdly, you need to have minimum social safeguards. And under voluntary principles, you need to look at the core benefits for social, economic, and gender issues. So once you do that, then you get to step 2, where you are supposed to identify environmental objectives. Now, so of course, we'll answer there's a question that. Then under step 2, you need to clearly identify the economic activity to be assessed, including its boundaries, technologies used, production processes, or services to be provided. And then you also need to specify whether the assessment focuses on mitigation or adaptation. So is the activity for mitigation or adaptation? Now, so to answer that, next you go to the step 3, which is in the next slide. Step 3 tells you whether you need enough to use the taxonomy catalog or the ISIC codes to identify the sector or the economic activity that you are looking at. If you don't understand, then you can seek guidance from the Green Finance Taxonomy document itself. So if you use that, then you ask your question whether the activity is covered in the catalog or ISIC codes. If it's yes, then you need to go to step 4. If no, then you don't need to go to step. If it's no, then you have a problem. So you have to wait and probably either abandon or not, or change the activity. But if it's yes, you go to step 4, where you now evaluate using principles, metrics, and thresholds to ensure that the activity meets the substantial contribution criteria. External data sources can also be used to aid the process. And you then determine whether it makes significant contribution to mitigation or significant contribution to adaptation. So there are 2 things that you need to look at. Are you doing a mitigation activity or adaptation activity? If it's yes, then you go to the next step, step 5, and on the next slide, step 5, then there is to ensure that you do no significant harm. So you ensure that the economic activity does not harm other environmental or social objectives. And if it complies, then you go to step 6. If it doesn't comply, again, that activity cannot proceed. And then if it complies, then you go to step 6, where you comply with that. And then again, if it complies, then you do the assessment of the core benefits under step 7, and you also do under step 8. You consider you assess additional benefits in terms of disclosure of taxonomic alignment. So that's the last step for how you are going to apply the taxonomy for Zambia. So this aligns with those 3 jurisdictions that I mentioned, and it also helps us to now collect data. So after disclosure, we can then collect data whether you did your adaptation or mitigation, and also in terms of social impact, economic impact as per your plans, and also gender impact, and so on and so forth. So that's how we have designed the taxonomy. Next slide. The next slide is just to look at the challenges we faced when developing the taxonomy. These are the main challenges. There could be other challenges, but these were the ones that were able to highlight. The first one is the balancing climate and biodiverse priorities. So that was a challenge, and this requires achieving a balance between climate change mitigation and biodiverse conservation. So to strike the balance between these 2 priorities, it was a very big problem. Then secondly, arriving at standardized definitions and setting criteria. This one was also a challenge to find that balance between sector definitions and standard national definitions for green projects. Sector-specific definitions and eligibility criteria for green activities was essential to ensure credibility and usability. Next. The third challenge was institutional collaboration and capacity. This is very important to collaborate and to have capacity. Now, this, we are just beginning. Zambia has not yet published the taxonomy, so we just started, and this was a very big issue. So we needed to ensure effective coordination, capacity building, that we had capacity, and that we had a shared understanding across the diverse stakeholders. It was a very important milestone. Then fourth, data gaps and reporting limitations. This was a very big challenge. So we had to overcome this challenge. We had to we signed MOUs with FSD Africa for data to try and see what gaps, what data is saying about Zambian green space. We also had UNDP Biofin also conducting some studies, helping us with some data, so that we understand the environment, and also reporting limitations on green data. So we didn't have. So lack of robust systems for tagging, tracking, and reporting green finances is very important, and that's why we have also included it in our as an annex to our taxonomy, so that data should not be an issue for Zambia in terms of implementing the green taxonomy. Next. And the last one is on market readiness and awareness. This was also a big challenge because we are just beginning, and the market was not ready, and in terms of awareness, it was very, very low. Many financial institutions and investors were unfamiliar with green finance concepts. So as a Bank of Zambia, what we did from our point of view was to undertake some capacity building programs, which we did. We successfully implemented that. And we will continue with capacity building so that we have so many people being trained and ready and aware of the green finance concepts, so that it will be easy to implement our green finance taxonomy. So extensive sensitization and training and piloting testing were needed and to build the market confidence and readiness. Next. So in terms of conclusion, we can say that the Green Finance Mainstreaming Working Group is in charge of developing the Zambian Green Finance Taxonomy. Then the taxonomy covers 8 sectors, and that the sector selection criteria is aligned with the national aspirations for climate change and national nature-related mitigation and adaptation balance. We also have 4 pillars for the green finance taxonomy, and that the tagging and reporting framework is an extensive or extension to the green finance taxonomy and can be considered as a fifth pillar. There are 8 steps to be taken in terms of aligning the GFT, the Zambia Green Finance Taxonomy, and that the development of the taxonomy had some challenges, some of which have been addressed and others have been addressed, like capacity building. And finally, the green finance taxonomy is nearing publication. As I mentioned, before the end of the year or before the end of the 4th quarter, we should be able to publish the Zambia Green Finance Taxonomy. So that's what I prepared as in the first webinar. In the next webinar, we shall look at more details and other things as will be guided in terms of the coverage for the next webinar. But for the time being, this is what we prepared in terms of you understanding where we are in terms of the taxonomy development and the challenges that Zambia is facing in the development process. I submit. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Ozol, for this quite detailed, very informative presentation on the Bank of Zambia's journey on developing the green finance taxonomy that is soon to be published. We can't wait to have it publicly available. With that, I see that we've had already some few questions, but before that, I would like to ask one additional question to all the speakers that to reflect on before giving you the floor. I mean, to the audience the floor to raise their questions, but please, when raising your questions, mention your institutions and names. Your names are also the institution you are representing today. So to coming back to Dr. Oswald and to Dushan, how can green finance taxonomies promote financial inclusion, particularly for MSMEs, support the circular economy, and reflect this shift towards broader sustainable finance, including biodiversity and nature-related solutions from your perspective?
Shall I
can start. Okay.
Yes, Dr. Oswald, please.
Okay. Yes, maybe let me start responding. Yeah, so in terms of financial inclusion and the green finance taxonomy, the way we've designed the Zambian taxonomy is in such a way that it's you need to, as you are implementing, you need to determine whether you're following the mandatory or voluntary principles, and the subsidiary regulations that the Bank of Zambia developed, which is the green loans guidelines, meant to enhance financial inclusion. Yeah, because the products that go with that kind of regulation, or the green loans guidelines regulations, small loans which could be accessed by MSMEs and the sectors that are vulnerable sectors. So we have in place that legislation, and then we are also looking at including the social part to the regulation, and the Bank of Zambia is working on the ESG guidelines now, so that we can now enhance financial inclusion, because then we are going to be getting those parameters for social impact, how the financing or access to green finance is actually impacting on the social fabric of society. So we are still in the development phase, but we are mindful of financial inclusion aspects that should be enhanced. Now, in terms of circular economy and enhancing of biodiversity, yeah. So from my presentation, one of the aspects, the pillars for developing the green finance taxonomy was to find the balance between climate and biodiversity. And what we have done is that that balance has been embedded within the green finance taxonomy, in the sense that when looking at these green projects, biodiversity will also have to be considered. For instance, the wetlands in Zambia. If you look at the wetlands, the country has a danger of losing the wetlands, and therefore it was also established that these wetlands and their natural habitat need to be conserved because they are part of the environment, and therefore our green finance taxonomy is aligned to enhancing biodiversity conservation. Thank you.
Yeah. In the interest of
Dr. Oswald. Yes.
I'll give a very short
Continue.
answer. Yeah. So you asked about how the taxonomy will promote those aspects of sustainable financing. So it's a classification. So directly, it will not promote any such financing activity, but there are two ways that it can support. One is that it showcases a full list of activities where any SME or women entrepreneur or any other party in the society can utilize this as a bankable project, convert it to bankable project where they will have funding. So right now, in the case of Sri Lanka, what the bankers complain mostly is that they don't come across bankable projects. The proposals are not up to the level that they can be considered under sustainable financing. So by having a taxonomy, a well-detailed and structured taxonomy that can act as a criteria for designing a project or a product which can benefit the demand side. And on the other hand, since this was issued by the central bank, the regulator, so it gives a guarantee to the investors on the other side, where the financial sector is complying with the taxonomy, meaning that it will not let their funds directed at greening or green financing activities be used for any potential greenwashing. So in those two ways, I think the taxonomy can act as a promoting mechanism. Thank you.
Nashwa, are you there? I don't know if it's me, but I don't hear you.
Yeah, Nashwa, we can't hear you. Oh, we've lost Nash.
Okay, no problem. I think I will take it here. So I think I see a couple of questions in the chat. So
Sorry, I had a connection issue.
no,
Sorry,
no
I'm
problem.
back.
Go ahead.
I missed the last part of the answer of Dushan, but I would like to thank you for answering this question. And we've had already some few questions in the chat box. I think they were about the Sri Lanka, but also Bank of Zambia's experience. Please give me a few minutes trying to find chat box. Anyways, I have them here. I think that the first questions are for Dushan, and they are covering specifically how does green finance affect the insurance sector in Sri Lanka? And the second question is how will the taxonomy address potential risks of greenwashing in the Sri Lanka's financial sector?
Yeah, for the first question, so insurance sector in terms of sustainable, so greening the insurance sector, they are at a very primitive stage right now. So they are yet to come up with climate insurance products or sustainable insurance products, but they have a lineup of products that they have researched, and through international collaborations, they have come up with certain products that are aligning with the taxonomy that we have issued, because since they are also part of the stakeholder committee we have, so they are complementing all of their initiatives with the taxonomy issued by the central bank. So they are going to promote, so in these actions are to be taken in future, but they have come up with an action plan to promote green insurance products targeting at so since we have a sizable agriculture sector, so climate insurance is one most important area, and also for women entrepreneurs, so women entrepreneur insurance products, and also MSME insurance products. They are going to bring in the sustainability component, and if they are following certain activities, or they have come up with projects that are considered as green under our taxonomy, so these insurance products can be used as a cover for their risks. So that's how the taxonomy or the green finance will affect the insurance sector. But as I said, it's still in a very early stage of development. And when it comes to the second question on how the taxonomy addresses potential risks of greenwashing, so since this is issued by the central bank, and since banks and finance companies are following and adhering to it, so it gives sort of a guarantee that for the investors, especially that for the depositors as well. So the funds that they want to be directed towards sustainable or green projects are actually going into such projects, but not for any potential greenwashing. So one example is that in the recent times we encountered that for one of the products related to automobiles. So we encourage electric mobility, and for that, for any project related to electric mobility, our taxonomy provides for it. But that does not cover any hybrid motor vehicles. So, but there was an incident where some have claimed for hybrid automobiles under the green taxonomy, but because of our screening process, it was later realized that that cannot be considered. So likewise, it ensures in a way that your funds, your investments are directed towards the activities that are considered green under the taxonomy. So that's one guarantee that the investor or the depositor will get. Thank you.
Thank you, Dushan. We have another question for Dr. Oswald as regards the Zambian experience. And I think the question is, what do you mean when you say that the green finance taxonomy of Zambia is aligned to Kenya and South Africa's jurisdictions? Does this entail that all requirements in Kenya and South Africa are wholly applicable in Zambia? Please clarify. We also have another question to you, Dr. Oswald, if I may. Kindly share the experience with other peer neighbors, if you have any, for the purpose of learning. Thank you.
On the first, the last one, I wouldn't have any information on South Africa right now, Kenya and the EU, but we have the documents that we can share through RORA. So for those who want to read more on how we've summarized the various taxonomies for these three jurisdictions, we are very willing to share that. But in terms of the benchmarking, you know, what I said was that our taxonomy has been benchmarked in terms of the structure, okay, or in terms of alignment steps. So if you look at those alignment steps that I presented, those alignment steps in terms of how the users go about determining whether the activity is green or not are aligned with the EU taxonomy, the South African and the Kenyan. So what you saw from there is what you are expecting to see from these other three taxonomy jurisdictions in terms of the application. So we are not different from those. Now, the advantage with this was for us to align our operations and our business flows to these jurisdictions. For instance, it will be very easy if someone wants to invest in South Africa in a particular green project. It will be as good as also investing in the Zambian market, because the taxonomies will be speaking to each other. If they want to invest in the EU region, it's the environment, the taxonomy will be almost similar to the Zambian taxonomy, and also to the Kenyan taxonomy system. If you can as well just invest your money is in the Zambian economy. So that was the basis for choosing this taxonomy, and we have chosen them purposively. That these are the countries or jurisdictions that we want to align ourselves to. Now, in terms of the local, from the local perspective, in Zambia, we have 3 regulators. From the Securities and Exchange Commission, they've produced the Green Bond Guidelines. These Green Bond Guidelines are based on, trying to have some instruments, green instruments, for ensuring that the country is aligning itself to its own environmental objectives. So now, what is missing from, say, the capital market, from the Bank of Zambia? What was missing was the taxonomy, the general taxonomy for the entire country. So that's how we came up with this taxonomy for the country, so that we can have a uniform platform on which to base decisions within our jurisdiction, within our country, as to whether a particular activity is green, and whether it conforms to the international best practices in terms of considering that project as a green project. So I think that's what I can say, but I think the materials on the other jurisdictions. My presentation was basically on the Zambian situation. I didn't want to get into presenting on other jurisdictions. For instance, South Africans or Kenya was supposed to be here to present their own jurisdiction. So it will be unfair for me to talk about their jurisdictions. But I think, Rora, if you want more details, Rora can organize that. We have the South African, the Kenyan, and someone from the EU to talk about their jurisdictions. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Oswald. We have an additional question for AFI, and the question is, from the Central Bank of Sudan, would it be possible for AFI to establish a dedicated platform that enables development member countries to connect with international organizations and climate funds in order to mobilize support for climate-related projects?
Yeah, so thank you, Nashwa, and thank you, Mohammed, for this question. Yeah, I think that AFI has been actively promoted this connection with all other partners, also with other funders. And yeah, within AFI also we are having some international funders that are promoting this particular policy area. And yes, we are working on this. So it's very, well, I'm very glad to share that, for example, for some specific projects, another partners have come in and provide this additional funding for the implementation side. So AFI, most of the time, AFI is a very good enabler in order of the policies itself. So we, through technical support or grants, we are supporting members in order to issue specific policies like roadmaps, taxonomies, or any other policy or initiative. But yes, we are working together with other organizations in order that they also can come in and support the implementation side. Thank you. Nashwa, I'll go back to you.
Yes, thank you, Laura. There is another question for Afi again. Is it possible to develop a template that member countries will follow in the development of green finance taxonomy? And this question is raised from Ibrahim, who is representing the Bank of Sierra Leone.
Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim. So yeah, actually, currently at the working group, we are working on these initiatives. So one of them is also aiming to measure the IGF progress implementation framework, and together with this one, we are also aiming to prepare the so we have internally a database, but also we would like to open this information not only to the working group right now, but also beyond. But yes, we are working on this too. Thank you, Nashwa. Thank you, Ibrahim.
Thank you, Laura. I think that we have only a few minutes left. If you want to raise your hand or drop any additional question before closing the webinar, please feel free to raise your hand or drop the question directly in the chat box. And please do mention your names and member institution. Second, if there's any hand raised. No.
No, I don't see either.
I assume that we can wrap up, or we. Yes. So, yeah, then please join me in warmly thanking our speakers who provided very insightful and informative information about the development and implementation processes across different jurisdictions. I have personally hugely benefited from this webinar, and the key takeaways that I would like to share with you from this first webinar are: first, the green finance taxonomies are very essential in the global sustainability policy mix, especially for emerging markets and developing economies that have greater exposure to climate disasters and risks, less adaptive capacities, huge financing needs, and need to attract green capital, including from international institutions. So yet green finance taxonomies are not sufficient alone and need to be supported by some public legal policies, regulatory incentives, and regulatory supportive environments from financial regulators. And we've had the opportunity to also cover to what extent the central banks could be involved in this space, while they're not really directly mandated within directing credit or financial institutions towards the economy. They have a key role to play when it comes to financial stability, and the green finance taxonomies could support this objective by improving investor market participants' interests and full capacity towards climate action and managing climate-related risks. We've covered also the key components of taxonomies that range from environmental objectives to some technical screening criteria, and cover in some specific cases, like it is the case for the Bank of Zambia, the social dimension and some social aspects. One other key takeaway I would say was that yes, the challenges, and I think there are some common challenges that we could notice and observe from different journeys and practical experiences. They lie first and foremost on the institutional capacity, data limitation, capacity and expertise, which is lacking, the financial sector's readiness, but also how to ensure a balance between the international interoperability on the one hand, but also the relevance at the national level to make sure that the green finance taxonomy are also reflecting some of the localized vulnerabilities and climate priorities within and country-specific considerations, but also being aligned with the international taxonomies. And we've seen different approaches. All the taxonomies that were shared today are somehow aligned with the international taxonomies, but also some of the regional taxonomies, which is actually the case for the Bank of Zambia. They're taking into consideration and into account Kenyan and the South African taxonomies. So we've had also the opportunity to reflect on the possible solutions, some of the key lessons learned, but also some of the success factors and the most effective governance structures and arrangements to succeed in effectively implementing and designing green finance taxonomy. And one of the key solutions, and which comes first and it's commonly agreed on, is capacity building is key, either through the guidance to banking institutions or financial sectors that are primarily intended to use the taxonomies, but also through international collaboration. We've seen some support that was provided to Bank of Zambia, but also to Sri Lanka through international expertise mobilization, some international experts. The second solution is actually cross-agency cooperation, multi-stakeholder collaboration involving a broad consultation process while developing the green finance taxonomies to ensure that we're reflecting both private and public sector priorities, needs, and challenges, while also seeking to utilize the international expertise in the development processes, since we are lacking, in most of cases, the technical capacity to develop. But also to overcome data limitation and the weak or ongoing market maturity. One way would be to have voluntary approaches, or as is the case for the Nepal Rastra Bank, to make sure that the framework is flexible enough and could accommodate additional requirements, but also that we are providing guidance, some regulatory incentives. And we've seen that in the case of Nepal, they're also considering some policies from the central bank space, either through capital requirements or some support that would be provided to financial sector, including microfinancing, to implement the taxonomy. Another approach and solution to overcome the lack of capacities and the insufficient readiness of the financial sector would be also to have a phased approach, as it is the case in Sri Lanka's journey. We've had mandatory approach for banks primarily, while we are also considering some follow-up steps to make sure that it applies in a mandatory manner to all the market participants. And what did I noted also? I think, yes. So we could also start by a principle-based whitelist, which I think is actually the case for all the taxonomies that were shared today, rather than going into more complex technical criteria. Providing a whitelist could be a good starting point for early stages of developing green finance taxonomies. So I think that I have covered most of the key takeaways from our webinar. So thank you for attending, and thanks. I warmly thank the speakers. I've also personally learned a lot from this webinar. With this, I thank you for your patience, for being present from the beginning to the end. And with that, I hand over to Laura to close the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Nashwa. Yeah, I also would like to appreciate again the contributions from Dr. Oswald, from Dushan, from Faisal. I think that he must leave earlier, and also Prasad Powder. So thank you very much. And yeah, Oswald, Dushan, I think as Nashwa says, everybody learned a lot. I think that we are having more and more questions about taxonomies. And yeah, this is just the starting point. We are having the second webinar on the 1st of October. We will share invitations, of course, with time. And the second one will be more on implementation. So we are, we are having many different approaches. As Dushan mentions, it looks like a taxonomy war, and also we are having some regional approaches that also will be interesting to look at and discuss during these webinars. So thank you for a wonderful moderation, Nashwa. It's always our pleasure to have you here, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And yeah, we hope that we can see you soon in the next one. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Najwa. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Oswald.
Thank you. Thank you, Nashwa, and all the team. Thank you for this valuable presentation. Well done. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Oswald, for the good presentation.
Thank you.